I still remember the way the lawyer looked at me that morning. He didn't say a word at first, he just kept flipping through the pages like he was searching for something that wasn't there. And maybe he was. Because what wasn't there was my name. That was the moment everything stopped. My world, my 15 years of marriage, my trust, my future, all packed neatly into one silence that lasted too long. You know, when someone dies, you expect tears, not whispers. But after Daniel passed, it was the whispers that came first. The neighbors, the friends, even the family, everyone suddenly had a version of him I didn't know. It felt like I had been married to a man who wore too many faces, and I only ever saw one. The funeral was quiet. I stood there beside his coffin, trying to feel something: sadness, anger, anything. But all I could feel was this emptiness. He looked peaceful, too peaceful, almost smug, like a man who had planned something I hadn't figured out yet. When the will was read, the truth finally broke me. Daniel left everything: the house, the investments, even the family business to our daughter Lena. And me? A single envelope. Inside, a note and a plane ticket to Monaco. That's it. 15 years of building a life together, and all I got was a trip. A one-way escape to a place I'd never even been. The lawyer looked at me like he wanted to apologize, but he didn't dare. Because how do you explain betrayal written in legal ink? I smiled, though, quietly. Because deep down, I knew Daniel never did anything without a reason. And if he left me out of his will, there was something else he was hiding. I didn't take the trip right away. Instead, I sat in that big empty house for days. The walls felt like they were breathing, holding secrets, watching me. Every photo frame on the wall looked like a lie now. The smiles, the vacations, the anniversaries. All of them souvenirs from a marriage built on something I no longer understood. Lena tried to comfort me. She said, "Mom, maybe Dad just wanted me to take care of things. You know how he was." And I smiled, pretending to agree. But her voice trembled when she said it. Because even she didn't believe it. I started going through his things, not to remember him, but to understand him. His drawers, his old watch box, the letters he kept in a small chest by his desk. That's when I found the first clue: a photograph. Old, faded, tucked inside a book about offshore investments. It was Daniel, with another woman. Not holding her hand, holding her waist. My stomach turned. It wasn't jealousy, it was betrayal that stung deeper than any affair. Because the woman in that photo wasn't a stranger. She was someone from his past. Someone I thought he'd left behind long before he met me. There was a note on the back of the photo. For what we couldn't have back then, maybe one day. That was the first time I realized my husband's death wasn't the end of a story, it was the beginning of a mystery. And I was suddenly the main character in a story I didn't ask to be in. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream. I just sat by the window, watching the streetlights reflect off the rain. The kind of rain that doesn't wash things away, it just reminds you what's already gone. The next morning, I opened the envelope again. The ticket to Monaco. First class. And at the bottom of the envelope, I noticed something I hadn't seen before: a small, handwritten line under his signature. "You'll understand everything when you get there." My hands shook. I don't know if it was fear or curiosity, but I booked the flight. When I landed in Monaco, I didn't feel like a widow. I felt like a detective in someone else's life. Everything there was beautiful. The ocean, the hotels, the quiet wealth. But beauty can be cruel when your heart's broken. Because it reminds you what peace looks like, and how far away you are from it. I checked into the hotel listed in his note. Room 512. At first, I thought it was just another one of Daniel's puzzles. He loved games. But when I opened the door, there was another envelope waiting on the desk. No name, just a sealed Daniel's initials. That's when I knew. He didn't just leave me out of his will. he left me a trail. And right here, before I tell you what was inside that envelope, if you're watching this, subscribe. And let me know where you're watching from. Because this isn't just my story. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and what happens when love turns into a secret you never saw coming. When people talk about grief, they make it sound like a single moment, like something that happens, breaks you, and then passes. But it doesn't. It sits with you. It eats with you. It follows you from room to room, breathing just behind your shoulder. After Daniel's funeral, the house felt like a museum. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt alive. His coffee cup was still on the counter, half stained at the rim. His favorite jacket hung by the door, sleeves slightly rolled the way he liked them. For a week, I couldn't bring myself to move anything. I thought if I left it all untouched, he might somehow come back, slip into his chair, and say, "You're up early again, Eve." But he didn't. The mornings became the worst part of the day. I'd wake to silence so heavy it pressed against my chest. Sometimes, I'd reach for his side of the bed, forgetting for a split second that it was cold now. I'd keep my eyes closed and pretend the warmth was still there. Pretend that he was still mine, still somewhere close enough to hear my thoughts. Our daughter Lena tried to fill the quiet with movement. She cleaned, rearranged, played old records he loved. I could see she was hurting in ways she didn't understand yet. She'd sit by the window, scrolling through pictures of the three of us, her lips trembling but no tears. I wanted to tell her it was okay to cry, but I couldn't say the words, because if she started crying, I might never stop. Sometimes, late at night, Grace would call. She'd whisper, "You don't have to be strong all the time, Evelyn." But I did, at least on the surface, because being strong was the only thing that stopped me from falling apart completely. I met Daniel when I was 26. He was all charm and sharp smiles, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they mattered. I remember thinking he was trouble the moment he looked at me. Trouble in a perfectly pressed shirt. We met at a gallery opening. I was there because Grace dragged me out of the apartment, said I needed to stop working weekends. Daniel was there because he owned one of the pieces being shown a photograph of the ocean at dawn. He told me he took it on a day he needed proof that light always returns. I laughed, thinking it was a line. It probably was, but it worked. Our first few years together felt like a dream. We married quickly, maybe too quickly, but when you're in love, you don't count the steps, you just run. He built a home for us, literally. The house we lived in was his design. Glass walls, warm wood, sunlight in every corner. He said he wanted it to feel open, like our lives should always have room to grow. Then Lena was born, and everything I thought was love deepened into something quieter but stronger. Daniel was obsessed with her tiny hands, her laugh, her first steps. He filmed everything. Sometimes I'd wake up at night and find him standing by her crib, smiling like the world had finally made sense. We had our ups and downs, like every couple. Money worries, long nights, tired words. But Daniel had a way of making problems feel small. He'd hold my hand, kiss my forehead, and promise, "We'll be fine, Eve. We always are." And we were. Until we weren't. It started slowly, the distance. The late nights at the firm. The way he stopped telling me where he was going or who he was meeting. At first, I told myself it was stress, that he was carrying too much on his shoulders. But I could feel it in my bones. Something was changing. He began locking his office door. A small thing, maybe, but Daniel had never been secretive before. Once, I walked in with coffee and found him closing a folder too fast, his eyes darting like I'd caught him stealing light. He smiled, said it was just boring financial stuff, but his hands were shaking. That was 6 months before he died. The night he didn't come home, I didn't panic at first. He'd missed dinners before. But when midnight turned to 2 a.m., I called his phone, no answer. By 5 a.m., police lights painted our driveway blue. They said it was an accident. A car crash off the old highway. Instant, they said, like that word was supposed to comfort me. I remember the officer's eyes more than his words. He looked at me like he'd seen this too many times, like grief was just another form to fill. Lena didn't scream. She just stared at the floor, her face blank, like her world had quietly switched itself off. People came. People always come when someone dies. They bring food you can't eat and say things that don't mean anything. He's in a better place. You're strong, Evelyn. Time heals. But time doesn't heal, it hides. Days passed like fog. I would walk through the house touching everything he once touched. The banister, the kitchen counter, his camera, trying to feel him in the dust left behind. Then came the funeral black suits, fake smiles, the scent of lilies and rain. I wore a black dress, Daniel always said, made me look too serious. He would have hated the music. It was the wrong song. But I couldn't care. Nothing felt right. Grace stood beside me through it all. She held my hand when I thought I'd collapse. After everyone left, she whispered, "You did good, Eve." But I didn't. I just survived. Later that night, when the house emptied, I sat in the living room with a glass of wine, the one Daniel used to call too sweet. I stared at the empty chair across from me and said out loud, "What did you leave me with, Daniel?" The air didn't answer, but the silence did. When the lawyer called about the will, I already felt something in my gut, a quiet warning. Still, I dressed up, straightened my hair, tried to look composed. Grief is strange that way. You start performing it because people expect you to. Grace came with me, she insisted. You shouldn't go alone. The office smelled like paper and lemon polish. The lawyer spoke gently, but each word felt like a knife wrapped in velvet. When he said Lena's name, I smiled through tears. When he said Daniel's estate, all of it to her, my chest burned. And when he finally said my name, I held my breath. "Mrs. Hart, your husband also left a note and a plane ticket." A plane ticket. That was it. Grace looked at me, confused. The lawyer avoided my eyes. I didn't cry there. I waited until I was home, until Lena had gone upstairs. Then I sat in the dark and let it happen. The kind of crying that breaks sound, that comes from somewhere deep in the bones. That was the beginning of my real grief, the part nobody sees. The questions that rot quietly inside you. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? What kind of man leaves his wife behind but gives her a destination? And yet, beneath all that pain, a seed of curiosity began to grow. Because Daniel wasn't careless. If he left me a trip, he wanted me to find something. I didn't know it then, but grief would soon turn into something sharper, something close to truth. The week after the funeral, the rain still hadn't stopped. It was as if the sky itself couldn't bear to let him go. The house was silent, too silent. Every sound felt swallowed before it reached the walls. Grace came early, wearing her black coat, her hair tied tight, her version of armor. "Are you sure you want to do this today?" she asked. I nodded. "The lawyer's already flying in from Boston." She sighed. "Sometimes waiting isn't weakness, Evelyn. It's mercy." "I just want it done," I whispered. And I meant it. I needed something that felt like an ending. By the time Mr. Harlow arrived, the rain was falling in sheets. His voice carried that polished sympathy lawyers learn, kind, but not real. "Mrs. Holt," he said, "I'm very sorry for your loss." He shook Grace's hand, then turned as Lena walked in. She looked so much like him in that moment it hurt those calm, assessing eyes that saw too much. We sat at the dining table, the same one Daniel and I had picked out together. Mr. Harlow opened a thick envelope sealed in red. "This is Daniel Holt's final will and testament." My chest tightened at the sound of his name. He began to read. "To my beloved wife, Evelyn Holt." I waited, bracing for something that might sound like love. "I leave a travel package to Monaco. prepaid and arranged. That was it. No property, no accounts, no farewell letter, just that. I blinked. I'm sorry. What? It says here, a travel package to Monaco, Mr. Harlow repeated. Grace leaned forward. That's all? For his wife? He nodded uneasily. It appears so. I swallowed hard. And the rest? The remainder of Mr. Holt's estate, the Holt residence, assets, and the sum of $33 million shall be transferred to his daughter, Lena Holt. The heir left the room. Lena froze, pale. What? Grace exhaled sharply. After 22 years of marriage, he leaves you a vacation? Mr. Harlow's tone tightened. I can only read what was written. I sat still, hands cold, heartbeat distant. A trip to Monaco. That was my inheritance. Then came the final line. To my wife, I leave this wish that she travels to Monaco, where she may find the peace and closure I could not give her in life. Grace muttered. Closure. How poetic. I didn't respond. I couldn't. When the reading ended, the room was heavy with silence. Daniel's signature at the bottom stared back at me, confident, deliberate, dated 1 month before he died. Who witnessed this? I asked. Mr. Harlow turned the page. A business associate and a woman named Isabelle Moreau. Grace frowned. Doesn't sound American. French, he said. Mr. Holt had international dealings. Something twisted in my chest. Lena looked at me. Do you know her? No, I said, but the name echoed in my mind like a faint alarm I couldn't turn off. After Mr. Harlow left, the house felt smaller. Grace poured me tea I didn't drink. Lena sat across from me, trembling. I don't want any of it, she whispered. The money, the house, it doesn't feel right. It's not your fault, I said gently. But why would he do this? I had no answer. But I knew it wasn't random. Daniel was never careless. If he left me nothing, it meant something. That night, the house hummed with ghosts. I went to his study, the room where he spent his nights working. Inside the bottom drawer was a folded envelope with my name in his handwriting. I opened it slowly, expecting a letter. It wasn't. It was a travel itinerary. Destination: Monaco. Same hotel. Same date. And listed under Contact on Arrival, Isabelle Moreau. My heart stopped. The ink had bled, as if someone had written it in a hurry. Whatever he'd been hiding, it started there. I barely slept. By morning, sunlight cut through the curtains like nothing had happened. Grace came by with coffee. He wasn't cruel, she said softly. This can't be what it looks like. No, I said. He wasn't cruel. He was careful, and that's worse. You think he left you out for a reason? I think he's sending me somewhere, and I think Monaco is the key. Grace frowned. You're chasing ghosts. Maybe, I said. But ghosts are all I have left. That afternoon, Lena came home with swollen eyes. The bank called. They're setting up the trust. I nodded. Good. She hesitated. Are you really going to take the trip? Yes. Alone? I think that's how he meant it. She swallowed. I hate this. Everything feels unfinished. I brushed her hair back, smiled faintly. Some stories don't end neatly, sweetheart. Some end where the truth begins. That night, I went back to Daniel's office. I searched again, this time, for anything that would make sense of the betrayal. Behind a stack of receipts, I found a photo. Daniel, younger, sunlit, smiling. His arm around a woman, elegant, European. Unmistakably the kind of beauty that lingers in a man's mind. On the back, Daniel had written, To my anchor in Monaco, forever yours. The room spun. Grace had said he wasn't cruel, but cruelty doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through ink and memory. The next morning, I went to Mr. Harlow's office. Tell me about Isabelle Moreau, I said. He stiffened. She was a business associate. Try again. He hesitated. Mr. Holt moved funds through offshore accounts in her name. He said it was for Lena's future. And mine? Silence. I think he believed he was protecting you, he said finally. By erasing me? I whispered. When I left, the air outside felt different, colder, clearer. Grace called later that night. You sound different. I found her, I said. Who? Isabelle. And now? I'm going to Monaco. Grace's voice cracked. Evelyn, please. I need to know what he left behind and what he wanted me to find. I packed quietly the next morning. No jewelry, no perfume, just the essentials. A notebook, Lena's photo, Daniel's itinerary. Every zip of the suitcase felt like stitching a wound shut. Grace came to see me off. Promise me something, she said. What? When you find the truth, don't let it break you. I managed a faint smile. Maybe that's what truth is for breaking what was never real. As the cab pulled away, I looked back at the house one last time. It wasn't home anymore, it was evidence. Every wall, every echo, held pieces of a man I thought I knew. But now, for the first time since the funeral, I felt movement. Not falling, not drowning, moving towards something even if it hurt. The trip to Monaco wasn't a gift. It was a test, and I was finally ready to take it. The flight to Monaco felt endless, not a journey toward answers, but toward ghosts. The sunlight there was too bright, the sea too blue, as if the world itself was lying. In the hotel Daniel had once stayed, I found an envelope waiting on the desk. My name, his handwriting. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. Trust no one. No warmth, no love, just a warning. His assistant, Claire, greeted me at his old office, her smile polite, her hands trembling. She claimed to know nothing, but her eyes betrayed her. They flickered toward a locked drawer. I didn't press then, not yet. Later, I found what she'd been guarding. A small black box, a brass key, and a note that chilled my blood. You were never supposed to see this. The key led to a hidden safe. Inside photographs. Daniel, Isabelle, Monaco. Every picture proof of a life I never knew existed. It had to be this way, one note said. I'm sorry. Grief didn't come this time, only clarity. A friend of Daniel's confirmed what I already feared. Isabelle wasn't just a lover. She dealt in secrets the kind powerful men would kill to keep buried. And Daniel's lawyer, Mr. Harlow, wasn't clean either. His real name was Gregory Hale, a man tied to Isabelle's world. By the time Grace called, her voice trembling with warning, I already knew this wasn't just betrayal. It was danger. As I stood on the balcony that night, the sea swallowing the stars, one line echoed in my head. Meet me where the world ends. Maybe that was where the truth waited, or where I would finally learn why Daniel had to die. Morning came gray and restless. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, Daniel's face blurred with Isabelle's and Harlow's. I knew where I had to go. The cliffs. The road wound along the rocks, the sea roaring beneath. Halfway down, hidden in the hillside, a cabin waited its door carved with 3 faint letters. D-H-M. My hands trembled as I turned the key. Inside, dust and sunlight, a desk, a chair, a safe. The brass key slid home. Papers, photos. A ledger with Daniel's initials spilled across the table, not just numbers, but a map of the life he'd hidden. Transactions with Hale Holdings. Offshore accounts tied to Isabelle Moreau. Letters in his own hand. The money isn't clean. I left you out of the will because it's poisoned. If you touch it, they'll come for you too. I pressed the paper to my chest. All this time I'd thought he betrayed me. Maybe he was trying to save me. The tears came quietly. Back at the hotel, Grace was waiting. She read everything, pale and silent, then whispered, "So he left you out to keep you safe." I nodded. "He loved me," I said. "But he was caught in something he couldn't escape." That night, alone, I found one last envelope. A bank draft to Isabelle Hushmoney. Maybe that's why he died. My grief sharpened into resolve. I called Harlow's office. "Tell him Evelyn Holt would like a word," I said. "I have something of Daniel's he might want to see." For the first time since Daniel's death, I wasn't afraid. I finally knew what I was holding. Not just evidence, the truth. And I was done being the woman left out of the story. It began with a letter, not a press release, not a demand, just ink on paper. I wrote it at dawn, the sea murmuring below the balcony, the world half awake. Months of noise had taught me that silence could speak louder than any headline. "To the board of Hale Industries," I began. "You know the widow, not the woman. I send you the truth Daniel died carrying." I enclosed his hidden files, proof of the deals and the lies, and signed it without anger, only certainty. Then I walked to the post office, slipped the envelope into the box, and let it go. When the board's statement came, it didn't deny him. It redeemed him. They admitted the corruption, promised reform, and placed a plaque beneath his portrait, in memory of a man who built, lost, and tried to make amends. Grace said, "He finally got his redemption from you." Maybe she was right. When Lena arrived, older in her eyes, she asked, "Did you still love him?" "Yes," I told her. "But love means seeing clearly." "That evening by the shore," she said. "Then let's continue, Mom." And I understood revenge wasn't destruction. It was reclaiming the story in my own voice. The letter rippled quietly through the world. Articles called it the widow's letter, but I didn't care. The truth had air again. Grace brought photos Claire had saved Daniel young, reckless, human. I couldn't hate that version of him. Weeks later, Hale Industries announced a scholarship in his name. Lena smiled. "You changed something." "Maybe. Or maybe truth did." I returned to the cliffs, left Daniel's last note beneath a stone, and walked away lighter. I painted again, only the sea this time. Endless and free. Lena called from Spain. The sea roared behind her. "I started painting too," she said. I smiled. "Then we're both free." As night settled, I whispered to the waves, "Goodbye, Daniel." The wind carried it away, gentle, final, forgiven. When the noise faded and the letters stopped coming, silence became my companion again, but this time, it was kind. I learned that peace doesn't arrive wrapped in justice or money. It comes when the truth no longer hurts to speak. I walk through the house sometimes. Lena's laughter still echoes in the walls. Daniel's shadow isn't heavy anymore. It's just a memory, soft around the edges. Grace still visits on Sundays, bringing flowers and too much coffee, reminding me that life moves forward, even after the storm. I'm not the woman who lost everything anymore. I'm the woman who found herself after everything was gone. Grief taught me how to see clearly. Betrayal taught me strength. And forgiveness, the quiet kind, taught me freedom. If you're still here, listening, thank you. Thanks for giving my story a place to land. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your story in the comments section. Your voice matters. Because sometimes, healing begins when someone finally listens.